Okay, quick introduce myself. My name is Andrew Lopez. My topic's going to be on global warming, and my main proposition is that it is altering the planet at a significant rate. So just a little background, just in case some of you don't know. Global warming is basically the trapping of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which in turn traps the heat from the sun, and it's just slowly heating up the planet. And for the most part, it's believed to be caused by people, humans, you and I, everybody. So just why I'm talking about this, that there are some communities, scientific and otherwise, that do doubt this, but it is scientifically proven, there are facts, and that's why I'm speaking about it. So my supporting claims, I'm going to talk about the cause, go into a little more detail of why it happens, what happens, talk about the what it does, which is it variates on global extremes, which means just because it's global warming doesn't mean it's technically just warming. Global warming means it's getting hotter, it's getting a lot colder, it's instead of an average, it's going off more towards polar opposites. It's also melting the ice caps, and it does cause sometimes extreme weather phenomena in certain areas. So how it's caused? It's the burning of fossil fuels, which can happen anyway. It's like when you use your car, the gas that burns. When you have a fire, the carbon dioxide that goes in the air. When you deforestation, people are always trying to expand, new buildings, new areas, new everything, trying to make money. They chop down trees, they chop down forests, they chop down woods, and that in turn is leaving less and less trees to absorb all the carbon dioxide and turn it back into oxygen. So even how it's caused is changing the planet as far as reducing trees and stuff goes. So the changes. The global climate it's changing extremely. Even now, if you think up north, Canada, the Northeast, New York, extremely cold, weather storms. It's not usually like this. You think back last year, you thought it was cold, there was snow up north, but it wasn't that bad. But when you think about it now, it's like 20 below zero, it's below zero, it's completely freezing. That's just a little sign of what global warming does. It just causes weird weather extremes. In the future, it's for website ecologic.organization.org. They are predicting that global warming could increase the temperature anywhere from 2 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit in the next 100 years. Which, if you think about it, 12 degrees hotter every single day, that's ridiculous. You're looking at 104, 105 on some days here in California, where you think it's nice 80 weather. Also, the melting of the polar ice caps would, if you think it's supposed to be cold there, right? Global warming, it's heating things up, it's melting things, that's how it's changing the planet. It's causing destruction, whereas it's meant to be cold, it's meant to be icy, it's meant to have snow, stuff like that, it's melting. That's disastrous for this planet. If you think about it, all that ice, when it melts, water's gotta go somewhere. So what happens? It adds to the sea level. It's raising and raising the sea level, and it's destroying land. The sea level, it's predicted off that same website, ecologic.org. It's between 1870 to 2004, that's about 130, 140 years, water levels only rose just a tiny bit, 1.4 millimeters. But if you look at a more current state, like a more current time period, between 1993 and 2009, it's raising at about 3.3 millimeters a year. So per year, within the last 20 years, it's raising twice as much as it did within those 140, 150 years. So the global warming, it's just disastrous. It's destroying the planet. It's causing things that shouldn't be happening to happen, and it's really affecting our planet. Thank you.
Andrew, you've got a clear statement of the proposition, but your preview of the supporting points is really confusing because it basically sounds like a laundry list of issues, and you never get to all of those issues. Your internal signposts are not very clear either. They're mostly, like I said, citing particular evidence as opposed to drawing an inference from some of that evidence. And even then, the evidence isn't really cited. For instance, you make a claim about CO2 being lost as a result of deforestation or trees, but I didn't hear any source citation on it. You didn't say that there was an unbalanced loss of the total number of trees. I don't know what the logging procedures are in other parts of the world, but I know that most logging that's done here in this country, for instance, for every tree that they take, they're replacing 1 or 2 trees. If there's an imbalance in the CO2 because of that, you need to show that, and you just kind of take it as an assumption. You cite the one website that gives us some statistical information. I thought that that was okay. And then you've got kind of this visualization or hypothetical example about what it's going to be like in 10 to 12 years. The basis of that estimate, I think, is kind of important because that's the one key piece of evidence that you have in the argument is based on this projection. So there's no defense of that projection. You don't do anything to build up its credibility. That seems to me like the weak link in the argument. If there are challenges to the credibility of that projection, then that's the key point that the response speaker is going to be focusing on. You've got a couple of hypothetical examples. The other statistic that you used was the information about the increase in the water levels. Again, I think you're kind of relying on the site to give us that information, which is okay, except that I didn't hear anything in that site that said that it was a result of the melting of polar ice. I just saw that the water levels are going up, and there's no explanation as to why in the evidence. We didn't get any data on disappearing polar ice, and that's another place where I think that there's probably some good data that you could be citing. Like I said, the structure is, I think, is a little bit problematic. It's not clear to me if even though you've got a clear statement of the proposition, it's not clear from the argument that I heard whether you were arguing that global warming is real or whether you're arguing that it is currently having an effect. Those are not necessarily mutually exclusive concepts, but ultimately, they are different concepts that will require different kinds of proof, and you kind of seem to be bouncing back and forth between the two of them. I think you need a little bit more focus. All right, thank you. Nathan.